I'm Becky from Retro from Scratch, and it was recently my birthday and I was gifted some lovely crafty gifts. This week we are going retro with painting by numbers. So my friend Nick bought me this lovely painted by numbers schnauzer. I don't think I've ever done painting by numbers, which is quite a shocker, but I do remember it as a kid. I've never tried it. I'm very excited to do this. So the very first job I'm going to do is iron this out so it's nice and flat, and then I can get ready to start painting. And what I hope to do is show you all the little tricks and things that I have learned along the way. But yeah, first job, we need to get the creases out. Now, this was a gift from my friend, so I've had a little look online and I have managed to find something similar, so I will drop an affiliate link in the description below if you would also like to paint a paint by numbers schnauzer. So I've got here my little ironing board that I can just pop onto the table like so, and I've got my iron. Now this is a steam iron. I don't want the steam function on, so I should make sure that is turned off. And I've put it on a cool setting because this is a canvas. I'm not really sure. I don't want to melt it. I don't want to burn it. So yeah, we're going to take it easy, start off cool, and if I need a little bit more heat, I may apply some water if I need to get those bigger creases out. Okay, so let's just give this a go. I'm just going to start at one end, just see very carefully how I get on. And I'm doing the back, so the front is this side. I don't want to... It seems pretty good. This is on a number 2 heat. I think it's going to need a little bit more heat for this side, actually, to get that big crease out. Okay, so actually I've got some crease releaser, so I'm going to give that a little go. I feel quite confident now that this is going to be okay. That took a lot longer than I was expecting it to, but it's really important with any artwork. If there is prep work that needs to be done, then it is really important to do that first. So the creases are pretty much almost out, and hopefully once I get painting it will be less obvious, and once it's in the frame it will be completely fine. What you don't want to be doing is taking an iron to it once you've painted it, because I don't know, the paint might come off, I'm not sure. So I didn't put the iron on this side, I only ironed on the back. I did increase the heat a little bit, and I did use the Lenore crease releaser. It smells lovely. I don't know if it necessarily, you could just use water is what I'm trying to say. You don't necessarily need to use that, but I'm now going to start painting and see how I get on, and I'll take you along for a bit of the ride and show you what I learn along the way. I have no idea how to start. Should I? Perhaps I should Google it. How do you start painting by numbers? Do you just pick a colour? Do you just pick a number? Or is there a systematic way to do it? Do you work left to right? I'm tempted to just pick a colour and just go for it. But yeah, let's see what Google has to say. Okay, I've just Googled it. It's on my computer screen here, and it says the best way to do paint by numbers is start with darker colours to establish structure, work from top to bottom to avoid smudging, which is what I was thinking, and use a hybrid approach, filling in large areas by colour and small detailed areas by section. Use high quality fine tip brushes and keep them slightly damp, and consider using a magnifying glass. Well, thank you Google AI overview. Let's crack on, shall we? So I thought I'd just show you, I've set up on my dining table, and this is what you actually get. So this is what we're hoping to achieve. Isn't it cute? If you don't know already, I used to have 2 schnauzers, but a notice. You get a pack of 3 little brushes, which are quite small because there is quite a sort of large area there. So I've grabbed some of my own paint brushes that we might want to use. And then there's the paints with all the numbers on. So I shall get those out and get started. So it does suggest to start with the darkest colour, which is black, which is number 4. So, and then work top to bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. And then depending on the size of the area, like this is quite large, I'm then going to decide on what style brush I use. And obviously there are some like really small, fine little areas that I'll want to get in. So I'll probably want to use the much thinner brush. Let's see how I get on. I'm really looking forward to doing this. I think it's going to be a very relaxing exercise, especially as I am right next to my garden. Just opened the first paint and there's quite a lot in the lid, so I'm going to use the paint from the lid first before dipping it into the little pot, just to keep things nice and clean and tidy as possible. So I'm starting with the black, and this number 4 here is kind of like in my top section. There is a large area, so I'm using a larger brush, and I'm going to start with this brush and then I'm going to go in with the smaller one. But I have to say the coverage looks really good. I believe these are just acrylic paints, and yeah, this bigger brush is going to help me cover this larger area quicker. But when it comes to doing the more fine lines, when I get closer to a different section, I'm definitely going to change to a smaller brush. You can also get better control of your paintbrush if you hold it closer to the tip. So if you hold it further up this end, that's going to be more difficult for you. If you hold it more like a pencil, you're definitely going to get more control over that paintbrush. I can see it's drying lighter, but this is just a tiny bit of paint, because I have to say my first impression was, is there enough paint to do the whole of this poster? That worries me a little bit, but we'll just have to see how we get on. But now I've started, I think there probably will be. This is a tiny amount and we're already making good progress. I thought I'd just let you in on some of my thoughts whilst I'm doing this. So my initial thoughts was this wasn't going to take very long. I now take that back. I think this is probably going to take longer than I thought it would. But I have timed myself, so I will let you know at the end how long this actually takes. I thought I was going to need bigger brushes, but actually there's a lot of fine detail. So as you can see, I'm actually using the brush that was provided in the kit. Because it is textured, it is sometimes, when you're using the paint neat from the pot, it's quite difficult to get the paint in all the sort of nooks and crannies. So you need to be quite generous with the paint, obviously not too much. But then if you
add a little water, and when I say add a little water, I mean like the tiniest amount, as if like you've washed your brush, you've dried it out, and then the brush is just a teensy bit left wet. That actually helps to spread the paint over the little ridges and get it into the nooks and crannies. Otherwise, you have a sort of like a white speckledy look. If it is a bit too wet, then what then happens is you get a different colour, like a washed out version, which probably isn't going to make like that much difference. Because of the style of this painting, it looks like paint splats. So that probably isn't going to hurt, but I want to make it the best that I can do it. So, and I just wanted to share my thoughts with you. The other thought that's running through my head is, what colour is number 3? So I'm working on 4 at the moment. And whilst I'm in this area, I'm doing an eye. Whilst I'm in this area, all I can see next to the areas that I'm painting now is the number 3. And I kind of think, well, that must be the next darkest colour, maybe. But yeah, I've not looked it up. I've restrained myself from looking. So I will look in a moment to see what number 3 is. But there we are. Okay, have I done all of 4 in this section? I have. Woohoo! So number 4, done. I've not even looked in this area. I'm not sure if there's any 4. Oh, I think there is. Yeah, here, inside the ear. So that will be my next job. But this is what I meant by, what's 3? Look, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5. So these are the colours. I had to remember to put this lid back on before I went and turned it over. 3. So it looks like a blue, like a navy blue colour. It's got a lighter blue there. So I guess that is what I'll be doing next once I finish 4. One way I've found that works well is a little shot of how I'm getting on so far. Is so the suggestion on Google was to start top left to right, top to bottom, or if you're left-handed, you'd start right and go work your way left. But actually, I'm right-handed. Actually, I've found it best to start in the centre and then work my way around clockwise. Because like when you're doing normal painting, this is completely different. If I was painting a brush, the beard normally, I would be working in strokes like this to give texture and to give that shape, and I think it would be natural to do that. But because it's just colour blocking, it doesn't really matter. So you can actually just, there are times when I am painting at this angle, and then sometimes the picture is like this, and then other times it's completely upside down. But whilst I figure my way working in and down and then out, by the time I get round again, this side is dried, and then I can start doing the second layer. So it actually works really well. It's looking really good. I'm so pleased with it. It's really cute. And the frame's arrived, so I can't wait to get it framed when it's finally done. So I'm almost near the end. I've been working my way from the dark colours to the light colours. So there's been a few issues with the pale yellows and oranges. Can you see here? You can still see the numbers coming through. So what I've decided to do is I've grabbed a Posca pen. Weirdly, the light grey has more coverage than the yellows and oranges. So that's the red, slightly red pigments have been quite difficult, and this one I think has had like 3 coats on it. So yeah, it's much harder. Then weirdly, like the light grey here has only had 2 coats and you can't see the number. So I've grabbed a Posca pen, and what I'm going to do for number 5 is I've actually started going through, and look, you can barely see it. There was the 5. The 5 itself is quite a light grey colour. It's not white, but it's a very pale grey. So I've just used the Posca pen to dab on all the 5s, and then I'm going to paint that area. But I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to miss anything. I feel like now I'm erasing the numbers, it's a little bit of a dangerous game.
Here it is, all finished. Let me try and get it at an angle there where you can't see all the reflection. What do you think? Do you like my finished Schnauzer painting? Like I said, there is reflection here, so it's hard to see. I'm so pleased with it. I'm really struggling to not get the reflection in there. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. So I learned quite a lot. Now, I have to admit that I've never done a paint by numbers before, and I was a little bit skeptical. I think I was brought up back in the 80s. It was kind of like, paint by numbers, that's not real painting, that's not how you do it. But you can learn so much from paint by numbers. Now, the first thing I learned is it's very, very detailed and fine work. I had to work really quite close up. So the one thing I needed was my specs and also good lighting. So when I did all the painting, I did it in daylight next to me rather than at night time with a lamp on. And I found that made it was far more accurate. Now, you are sort of taught when you're colouring in things that you would not go over the lines, but actually you get to a point where you do want to go over the line just a little bit because you don't want that line showing through. Otherwise, that would be a giveaway that it's a paint by numbers, and you don't really want to see that. It was quite difficult with some of the lighter colours. Now, weirdly, the pale grey wasn't so bad. It was a thicker consistency. So this one here was actually quite thick and covered the numbers well, but 18 white, very difficult to cover the numbers, and really annoying that 18 was white. So that's 2 digits that you've got to cover up. If it was just the number 1, that would have made a little bit more sense. And maybe just not put any number on it at all, and that would have been even better. And it was the yellows, these sort of yellowy orangey colours, which were quite thin, and they needed this sort of pen beforehand, which I didn't do. If I'd done it before, it would have made it a lot easier, and I wouldn't have had to have applied so much paint. One of the biggest fears I had was that I was going to run out of paint. These little pots are not very big, are they? But I didn't need to worry. There's plenty in there. There's still paint like left over. So I really didn't need to worry about that at all. So I started with the dark colours first. So I would start with one colour at a time. You had the pot open, but you weren't rinsing your brush out all the time, changing the colours. So I didn't work left to right and keep changing the colours. I just did one colour and stuck with it until I'd filled in all of that number, and then I moved on to the next colour. Now, how long did this take? I worked it out that the first 2 colours that I laid down took 4 hours. So it was 2 hours a colour. There are 18 colours altogether. So that's 36 hours. And I think that's about right. Some colours, there wasn't as much, so therefore I didn't have to cover as much, and they were a bit quicker. But then some colours I had to go back over and do them again and again and again. So I think 36 hours, including framing it, is probably about right. The frame I purchased from Amazon, and it was less than £10. I'll put a little affiliate link in the description below if you're interested in that. Although the kit came with brushes, this was my most favourite brush that I used. It is a round 8 brush, which I had already. I just found this brush in particular to be quite nice to hold. I could get the paint on it easily and it spread really well. I could do thin lines and thick lines. So that is the brush. You can see still got a little bit of paint on there. So this is a round 8 brush. There. I found the paint by numbers really helped with that hand-eye control, but if you have got a bit of a shaky hand, you might find this a little bit difficult. However, if you have perhaps had an injury, an accident, or you have a condition like I have MS, and you want to get that hand-eye coordination working better again, then I would recommend a little paint by numbers just to test the waters and get things going. I found the best way was to put paint onto the brush and then to put it into a smaller crevice and then pull the paint out into the wider part of the space where you're working. The paint does dry quite quickly, but I found that I left the lid open and it was absolutely fine. Now you can use water, and obviously use water to clean your brushes, but make sure you've got some kitchen roll just so that you can wipe off the excess water. A little bit of water doesn't hurt to help spread some of the paints, particularly if it feels like it's quite a thick paint, but I would recommend that you use very little water, otherwise it can make the paint go very thin and then you've got that whole problem of the numbers showing back through again, and you'll just have to keep layering and layering, and that would be really time consuming. So try and keep your brushes as dry as possible. So would I do paint by numbers again? Well, yes, I definitely would. Now, obviously you need space to put your picture afterwards, so do bear that in mind depending on the size of your paint by numbers kit. I am actually going to donate this painting to Schnauzerfest. They are a charity that support schnauzers that have been rescued from puppy farms. They are dogs that have suffered and had a terrible start to their lives. We used to have a dog that was rescued from a puppy farm called Otis, who was a schnauzer, and our current dog Sam is a miniature poodle, but he was also from a puppy farm. And this charity do such amazing work to help raise awareness of dogs in puppy farms, but also to pay for their medical treatments. So this is going to be going to their auction. They have happily accepted it, I'm very pleased to say, and their charity colour is orange, and there's plenty of that in this picture, so I think it's just worked out perfectly. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. Please give us a like and a subscribe. I'm hoping that I can come here and give you craft tutorials, but also tips on what you can do, how you can improve your arts and crafts, what materials you might like to try, and just basically inspire you. So if this has helped you today, give us a thumbs up, please. And it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. It just means you'll get notified when my next video is here. So I'll see you this time next week for some more retro crafting. I'll see you then. Bye.